Hi, I'm Graham Steele, CEO and founder of CryptoSense, and today I'm going to talk about the financial consequences of bad cryptography. So when we're talking about bad cryptography, mostly we're not talking about using the wrong algorithm. If we look at the real breaches that have had bad consequences for companies, mostly what happens is attackers find a way to go around the cryptography. So it's those little rubber hits the road details of using cryptography that have gone wrong, and that's what the attackers have exploited in order to make money and breach the company. Here's an example of a key management attack. So this was an attack on the RSA company that happened back in 2011. So RSA had a product which is a secure login device. It's called a secure ID, and it has a number on it that changes every few seconds. And it's this number that you have to type in to log into your systems to get access to sensitive data. It's widely used in corporations all over the world. The way this device works is that there is a master key essentially encrypted by a timestamp and some other values, and that's what generates the 6-digit code. So if anybody ever manages to get hold of the master key, then they're able to generate those 6-digit codes themselves just by looking at the time. The problem is that the RSA company wasn't properly securing those master keys, those seed values that were used to generate the 6-digit codes. And after a spear phishing attack on the company, their attackers were able to move inside the network and find a server where these keys were stored and steal them. And by using them, they were able to breach some very important companies like Lockheed Martin, the defense contractor in the USA, and this led to the recall of 40 million of these secure ID devices to have their seeds changed. So financial consequences for RSA were pretty bad. So for a second example of the financial consequences of bad cryptography, let's look at Uber. In 2016, some source code from Uber was leaked via a public GitHub repository, and it contained a cryptographic credential used to access a database where 50,000 driver records were stored. In 2018, Uber were fined $200 million for that breach, and there may be more lawsuits to come. So again, the attackers didn't exploit the cryptography, they just found a way to go around it by getting hold of that hard-coded key. For a third example of the financial consequences of bad crypto, we can look at the Rbs Worldpay Attack of 2008. So attacks on financial services systems often never really become public, but in this particular case, the case went to trial, and so some of the details came out. It's a very interesting attack because it was carried out on an Rbs Worldpay data center in Georgia in the USA, but the attackers were in St. Petersburg in Russia, and they never moved physically into the US to make that attack happen. So what happened was that they managed to break into the Rbs Worldpay network, and they found themselves confronted with an HSM, a hardware security module, where the pins were being processed. And they needed to break those pins in order to make fake cards so that they could withdraw some people's money. The attackers who had discovered the HSM recruited the aid of an expert on a hacker's chat channel who knew how to make those kinds of attacks on HSMs. And he was able to exploit the fact that the HSMs were badly configured, so they'd left too much functionality open on the API, which allowed a bad combination of commands to be called, leading to the creation of a kind of code book. So that is, for every pin code between 000 and 999, I have a encrypted copy, so I know what the encrypted copy of that pin looks like. And then when I see the encrypted pin blocks go past, I can just look them up in my code book and work out what the pin is. So these attackers were able to do this for a number of pins. They created a worldwide cash-out ring and managed to get away with about $8.4 million. So again, it's an example where the attackers didn't break the cryptography. It was just a detail in the way it was deployed in that HSM that allowed the attackers to make the code book and get around the encryption. Our final example of the consequences of bad cryptography comes from a real nation-state attack. So in around 2012, there was a new, what's called an APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, a kind of state actor level vulnerability deployed in the wild that was called Flame. So this Flame malware or APT managed to get itself installed onto machines by exploiting bad cryptography in a certificate used to sign code for Windows updates. So this certificate had a digest made with the MD5 hash function. So the MD5 hash function has been broken for some time, But when the researcher who broke MD5 did some forensics on the Flame malware, they discovered that the particular way that this malware was exploiting MD5 was different from the public way. So it had actually been discovered, probably independently, probably by a state-level actor sometime before. So this malware was used to do the reconnaissance that later led to the Stuxnet attack, which destroyed thousands of nuclear centrifuges in the Iranian nuclear program. So some pretty serious consequences, but you can see why this exploit on MD5 was only used for these, we could say, quite consequential missions. There we have 4 examples of the consequences of bad cryptography. If you'd like to know more about how crypto can go wrong, get in touch with us at CryptoSense.